Right. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. All right, so we're going to do about 20 minutes of just settling the mind, being present, getting more present, and then we'll do about 20 minutes just trying to go through a couple of the points that Rinpoche mentioned last night to kind of bring about our motivation for today. So let's just take a few minutes to get into the comfortable in our meditation position. So connecting with breath, a couple of deep breaths in and out the body just to relax and open up the body. And then with breath and awareness, just moving through the body from the crown all the way down to the toes, just to soften and open up the body a little bit more to refresh the mind for meditation. So we breathe in, breathing in through the breathe in, and then as we breathe in, we just release and relax any knots or tension as we move down the body, through the brow, through the eyes, allowing like doing acupuncture on yourself, really, breath and awareness like the needle. And as we breathe in, we just release and relax as we find tension, especially around the eyes, jawline, in the jaw, often a bit tight there. So open up, release and relax, bring freshness, light to those areas as we move down the body. So let's do this for a couple of minutes. And to help clear the mind, support the mind for meditation. It's like a short purification exercise. Mind and wind, are inseparable. Along with the mind is a subtle wind element. So when we clear the wind element in the body, the sort of more subtle body, then it helps to clear the mind. So there's an exercise, as many of you are familiar with, 9-round breathing exercise, that helps to support the mind in meditation. If we don't have time for more extensive purification, you can do this short purification exercise. So we bring the first finger of the left hand, closing off the right nostril. And for a count of 4, we inhale and then hold for the count of 4. And then opposite finger, then you bring the finger over, closing the opposite nostril, exhale for 4, long, slow inhalation, exhalation, and then just hold again for 4. So it's like 4 counts of 4. Inhaling for 4 on one side, holding for 4. Exhaling for 4 as we move the finger and exhale through the opposite nostril. And hold again for 4, creating space for 4. So we do that 3 times on each side, each nostril. So first one is holding the right nostril, inhaling 3 times. Do that three times. Again, keeping soft through the jaw, through the back of the neck. Not forcing the breath, but slowly as we do that, the breath gets a bit deeper, into the body, into the stomach area. And then on the opposite side, when you're ready, first finger, right hand closing off the left nostril 3 times. And then through both nostrils. So, what we really want to do is create more and more space in the mind. When we meditate, any type of practice, a little bit more spaciousness. As Rimshi said last night, we've kind of been enslaved or imprisoned by delusion, especially self-grasping. For many, many lifetimes, we've been afflicted by that. The consciousness, the continuity of our mind, our consciousness, from life to life has just been afflicted, controlled, enslaved by self-grasping. It's the main ignorance, that causes us to grasp at a wrong view of self. So as a result of that, we experience or we get angry, we have attachment, pride, jealousy, all the other delusions kind of surround that main one, afflict us due to that main one. It's a bit like, because it's almost like we've been friends with these delusions. We've befriended them for a long time, many infinite, beginningless lifetimes. Just like maybe when we were younger, we got into the wrong group of friends because we thought that would be happy, that would bring us happiness. It looked exciting, looked like fun. But then we discovered that, it wasn't bringing us any more happiness, just more trouble. So we had to slowly, move away for that group of friends, figure out a way, to detach ourselves from that group. So similarly, we have to slowly detach ourselves, create a space in our mind, this healthy space where we can see the delusions and slowly unfriend ourselves from them. And as Rimshi said, start to see them more as our enemy, how they're not serving our potential for happiness. And the only way you can do that is by creating this kind of space of peace, purifying. As Rimshi said as well, listening to the teaching, reflecting on them, meditating, studying. So we start to see the nature of delusion in the mind, how it does enslave us. And the more we get space from them, from delusion, that much more our potential for happiness opens up. Just like moving away for the wrong group of friends, we start to feel more peaceful. So we do shamatha, a little bit breathing, bringing the mind to one point, concentration, just to help settle the mind a little bit. It helps us to create space to see the nature of delusion in the mind, the up and down, the kind of waters of samsara that we're always on the waves. We want to create this kind of single-pointed space in the mind so we can see how slowly how the delusion disrupts the mind, the natural peaceful state of the mind. So we bring the mind to one point. One object of concentration can be the breath. Some of you may have an object already, so you can utilize that. But otherwise, we just stick with the breath. So we bring our awareness to either the breath at the tip of the nostrils or at the level of the abdomen, and being simply aware, present with the process of the inhalation and exhalation at either of those places. So for the next 6-7 minutes, we're just going to do this exercise, so setting our mind, as much as possible. I'm going to be with the breathing at one of those places or whatever object we have. And when the mind wanders from that, I simply label thinking or sensation or pain, whatever the mind gets absorbed in that's separate for the object. As soon as we catch that, we just slowly and firmly go back to the breath and be as much as we can with the breath. So we do this again for 7-8 minutes. Okay, so you just slowly step out of that meditation for a moment. If you want to just move your body, sometimes, we're doing that through the power of the effort, get a little bit tight in the body, shake out a little bit. But it's very good because that meditation serves like a mirror to really help just us to see more than anything, more than being able to concentrate, helps us to see a little bit how, you know, attachments functioning in the mind, how we easily move off the object onto through the sense doors, or through the mental consciousness into thoughts. So just really seeing the general state of your mind right now. That's okay, we need to see, Rimshi says, we need to be able to identify the delusions. There's no way to eliminate them in the mind, use the right antidotes if we can't identify what's going on in a kind space, not in a self-deprecating space. It's one of the main hardest things to develop, I think, as Westerners, an inner kind space for yourself. So generally, as Rimshi said, we have been friends with delusion for a long time, and we need to turn that friendship gradually into seeing that the delusions are not our friends, unfriending ourselves from them, and becoming friends with the states in mind that bring happiness, patience, kindness, and especially the more tricky one, is this wisdom, developing a wisdom. So the self-grasping, that's a really, really tricky one to find in the mind, to really recognise how we grasp at a wrong view of self. That's deeply covered by other states of mind like anger, jealousy, pride. It's the deepest one to uproot in the mind. It's the hardest one to become like, to unfriend. Like you unfriend somebody on Facebook, yeah? When you realise they're not serving they're not bringing you happiness. So we have to unfriend ourselves from self-grasping. It's not easy. So step by step, you need a lot of inspiration. It's not just clicking a button. It really is a deep work. As most of us know, we've been practicing. Those have been practicing for some time. Because we've been friends, or Rinpoche said, enslaved by that for a long time. So the mind's really, really, it's like we so identify with the view of self. Moment by moment, second by second, even in our dreams, there's an I doing this, doing that, or just sleeping in the dark. It's always there. At the death time, when we touch the most subtle level of consciousness, just at that time, the I is not there. But we're not present there if we haven't made our mind familiar with those very deep, subtle states of consciousness. So we can see the spiritual work is a very long task, We need a lot of inspiration. So when we recite these prayers at the beginning, the lineage Lama prayers, we try to kind of get their inspiration. That's why we recite them, to receive their inspiration, their blessing. the qualities in mind that they developed, just try to get some taste of that to help ignite our consciousness into the light, instead of the dark. So that's what we're doing when we recite those prayers. But on a day-to-day basis, how do we stay inspired to do this deep work? The preliminaries, Rinpoche mentioned last night, we have to start with the preliminaries, thinking about how precious, feeling the preciousness of the opportunity that we have having met the Dharma. So in Precious Human Rebirth, Rinpoche mentioned last night, it's where we begin on the path. We don't begin with trying to recognise self-grasping. That's like going, starting in a really difficult place. We begin with we need to inspire the mind and feel the preciousness of the opportunity we have to do this deep work. So there's many points to the meditation on Precious Human Rebirth. 8 freedoms, 10 richnesses. But in a nutshell, when there's less time, we can use an analogy just to try and move the mind a little bit into that experience, that feeling. So some of us are familiar, but, we try and just hold a little bit what that analogy feels like when we think about it. Try and bring back that again, like we just heard this analogy for the first time. So imagine that there's a turtle underneath the blind turtle underneath the ocean, deep, like the Pacific Ocean, the vast ocean. This turtle lives under there. It's a blind turtle, so it can't see, and it lives deep under the ocean and it only comes to the top of the ocean like every 100 years, It's a pretty sluggish turtle, so it takes a long time to get up there. And when it does pop its head up, it's like only once every 100 years, gets to the top. And then he just goes back down there again and he's down there for another, how many, 90 plus years. And then he makes his way up to the top, So that's just happening ongoing. And on top of the ocean, there's this golden yolk, like a ring, or you could say like a rubber ring or something, it's floating along and it's golden and it's just like going all over the ocean. I mean, this is a vast ocean, like the Pacific, like we fly over. So it's, really big. So, what's the chance that when that turtle comes up and it's blind, so it doesn't even know where the yolk is, can't see the yolk, what's the chance of that turtle being able, when it comes up every 100 years, to meet and put its head through that golden yolk? It's like, I don't know, 1 in a gazillion chances, There's not a number for it. So us receiving the precious human rebirth, our situation right now is like being the blind turtle who's come up from the depths this 100 years, and that at that time we meet the yolk. Our head slips through the yolk. It's kind of like mind-blowing if you had that experience. The turtle had that experience. It's kind of the feeling of if you win the lottery, like everybody in the world, bought a ticket for the lottery and you won the million, I don't know, the $1 trillion now, these $1 billion maybe, trillion. It would be unbelievable to have that experience, winning the lottery. How fortunate you would feel, how wealthy you would feel. So, like that, when we reflect on precious human rebirth, it's this, and because we win like $1 trillion, it's like something precious, wow, what I can do with that money. So, like the turtle, when he meets the yolk, the golden yolk being the Dharma, the wealth of the Dharma, the medicine, the richness of the Dharma, this medicine that can free us from self grasping. So it takes us across the ocean of samsara. So that's how we start, trying to get this feeling of the Dharma being so precious, the teachings, as Rimshi was saying last night. Because when we ingest the Dharma, we become precious. Like we see in the example, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, gurus, inspiring Dharma practitioners, they have a preciousness because they've ingested the Dharma that's we become precious from that. Like we see even in the images here, we feel there's a sacredness and a preciousness with these holy objects because they embody the Dharma. So take a moment just to think again about that analogy, just in your own way. If it brings an inspiration, a feeling of like my life's precious, just like that experience of meeting the yoga or winning the lottery, what are we going to do with that precious human rebirth? As Rimshi said, ask ourselves more deeply, question. What main delusion, what main issue troubles you in the mind right now? Or maybe you're aware of a few, so can I chip away at them with this precious human rebirth? Can I use it for that? So along with the inspirational quality of thinking about precious human rebirth, taking a hold more clearly of the direction of your life, we also need to think of the transitory nature of life. Rimshi mentioned the teaching on death and impermanence. As long as we feel, as most of us probably do, unless we've done deeper meditation on death and impermanence, there's an innate feeling that we're going to live a long time. Death is somewhere over there in the sky, or I don't know, somewhere over there, far away. In my late 80s, that'll be nice, I'm going to live at least to my mid 80s, yeah. But we don't know. So how do we want to hold this feeling impermanence? So life is precious. So we get a sense of that with precious human rebirth. So again, a quick way to get a feeling of death and impermanence is imagining that you go to the doctor because you've had a backache or headache or stomach ache, something that's getting a bit more troubling. It's not going away with, I don't know, Advil or whatever, so you need to go and check out the doctor. Then they do some tests and you discover you have cancer or something, that's not it's not fixable. So they say, you have maybe a few months, maybe a year. We try and think about what that would feel like if you were giving that diagnosis. So that in that moment, when the doctor tells you that in that moment, that's a little bit like death and impermanence. Something totally shifts in the mind. And all we have is this moment or this few months. It's like the mind becomes so much more present. And it shifts our motivation for life. It kind of shifts us out of the geary attachment to this life into like what's really, really important. And as most people experience when they know they have less time left, spiritual matters, kind of like the quality of their mind, the quality of quality of their kindness, quality of their presence with others becomes more important than future plans, than the fundamental practical things of this life. It kind of brings the light of the Dharma to our mind much more urgently or kind of clearly. So perhaps as we move into the class today, we can think, if I only had this retreat, these teachings, that was all I was going to get until the next life. How much more clearly, how much more precious would that feel? And how much more deeply am I going to listen and absorb? the teachings. And that's the experience of the yogis, when they have these realizations of death and impermanence, precious human rebirth. Every syllable of the Dharma is very precious, and it goes deep into the consciousness. Touches us much more deeply with those two awarenesses. So for the benefit of ourselves, our own heart, our own mind, for the benefit of all living beings, friends, family, those who have the responsibility, if we've met the Dharma, been practicing, to really practice it, to really take in the Dharma. May I try to listen with these two preliminary minds today, with a sense of preciousness of the Dharma, preciousness of the situation, and a little bit more of an intensity through thinking about death and impermanence, the kind of fragile nature of our lifespan, that this might be the last time in this life we hear the Dharma. This might be the only time we put our head through the golden ring of the Dharma, for some many, many lifetimes. Then we go back into the depths, like the blind turtle. No access to Dharma. So holding that preciousness and that awareness, may I really listen closely, strongly, and with a good heart, and with a wish to benefit myself and all sentient beings, and to reduce the delusion in my mind. Take in this precious experience. Okay.